Emma Forrest had been Anthony Curry's shadow ever since we were children. Then we grew up, and he fell for someone else. One day, he looked at me with cold, distant eyes and said, "Emma Forrest, can you stop clinging to me for the rest of your life? Stay away from me. I can't stand the sight of you." Terrified of provoking Anthony any further, my father immediately sent me overseas. A long time later, Anthony suddenly asked about me again. My father answered without hesitation. "Please rest assured, young Master Curry. Emma is already promised to another man. She'll never get in your way again." For the first time in anyone's memory, the always composed heir of the Curry family completely lost his composure in public. Anthony Curry was the sole heir to the powerful Curry family. The Forrest family, by contrast, was merely one of countless smaller families that depended on the Kays for survival. The only reason I had ever been close to Anthony was because of a friendship forged generations before either of us was born. My great-grandfather and Anthony's great-grandfather had once been brothers in arms. After surviving life-and-death battles together, they chose the same auspicious piece of land to build neighboring homes. Today, that land had become an exclusive villa district, and the old houses had long since been replaced with sprawling modern estates. From the day I was born, Anthony had been my next-door neighbor. As the saying goes, those closest to the water catch the moonlight first. While daughters from other influential families fought desperately for a chance to get close to Anthony, I had already become his constant little sidekick. I liked being his shadow. As long as I stayed on Anthony's good side, the Curry family would continue taking care of the Forrest family's business. My father reminded me of that constantly. Stay by young Master Curry's side. Do whatever he asks. Learn to read the room. And whatever you do, don't make him angry. If you do that, the Curry family will continue looking after our business. I had plenty of rivals. The Brown family. The Durant family. The James family. Every family wanted to place their daughter beside Anthony. Anthony never refused anyone outright, but somehow, my place beside him remained unshakable. Whenever one of those girls tried to bully me, Anthony would send her away without hesitation. The most recent casualty was Angela Brown. We were vacationing in the Maldives. Angela lounged lazily beneath the sun in a bikini, stretched out on a beach chair. "Emma Forrest, we're out of juice." I immediately understood what she wanted. Coming right up. I hurried off with a smile to fetch more drinks. On my way back, I overheard Angela complaining to Anthony. "Why do you always bring Emma everywhere?" Anthony barely looked up. "Because she wants to come." I couldn't help grinning. Ever since we were children, Anthony had taken me everywhere he went. Beaming, I placed 2 glasses of juice on the small table between them. "Your juice. Enjoy." Angela shot me a vicious glare. I loved that expression. The one that said she couldn't stand me, but couldn't get rid of me, either. Angela and I were classmates. I knew exactly what kind of person she was. So when she deliberately abandoned me during a sightseeing tram ride, I wasn't surprised in the slightest. What was a problem was that I didn't know the area, couldn't speak the language, hadn't brought my phone, and wandered around for ages without finding my way back to the hotel. Eventually, all I could do was crouch by the roadside and cry. My eyes blurred with tears. Then, through the haze, I saw a lollipop appear in front of me. My tear-filled eyes instantly lit up. Anthony. The moment I saw the candy, I knew it was him. When we were little, my parents were rarely home. Whenever I cried loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, it was always the Curry family next door that noticed. Anthony would always calm me down with a lollipop. When we returned to the hotel, Angela was gone. Exactly as I had expected. From that day forward, she was permanently blacklisted by Anthony. The Brown family's business probably suffered because of it as well. His female companions came and went. Emma, however, remained. I secretly congratulated myself. I truly believed I would be able to stay by Anthony's side forever. I couldn't have been more wrong. Everything changed after we entered university. Anthony fell for Linda Clark, the celebrated heiress of the Clark family. The Clarks were every bit as powerful as the Kays. Linda had it all: beauty, elegance, intelligence, pedigree, education, and a figure that seemed almost unreal. She was the very definition of perfection. Unlike every other woman around Anthony, Linda showed remarkably little interest in him. For the first time in his life, Anthony reached out, and was rejected. Her refusal only made him want her more. It awakened every competitive instinct he had. He launched an all-out pursuit. Luxury watches. Designer handbags. Sports cars. He showered her with extravagant gifts, yet Linda remained completely unmoved. So he changed tactics. He personally bought breakfast for her every morning, invited her to lunch, and thoughtfully arranged every detail of her day. He followed her everywhere, devoted and attentive, exactly the way I had always followed him. Normally, I was practically inseparable from Anthony. Linda also had someone who accompanied her everywhere, her cousin, Lisa Clark. One evening, Lisa and I stood outside an upscale French restaurant, staring daggers at each other while waiting. Eventually, the handsome young heir and the elegant heiress emerged after finishing dinner. Linda smiled politely. "Thank you for dinner. I've seen your sincerity." She paused with a faint smile. "But I don't think it's enough." Lisa flashed me a middle finger, curled her lip in disgust, and happily skipped after Linda. Anthony frowned. But because Lisa was Linda's cousin, he held his tongue. Linda truly was extraordinary. She was the sort of woman who seemed flawless down to the very ends of her hair. I tore my eyes away from her graceful retreat and looked at Anthony instead. His gaze remained fixed on her disappearing figure. There was a quiet determination burning in his eyes. He wasn't giving up. That weekend, Anthony invited Linda on a yacht trip. Linda arrived with another man. Anthony smiled, but there wasn't a trace of warmth behind it. "And who is he?" Linda smiled gently, warm as a spring breeze. Even I couldn't help admiring her. "He's Jeremy Smith," she said softly. "We've been friends since childhood. We grew up together." Anthony spent the entire outing wearing a dark expression and making sarcastic remarks. As everyone was leaving, I happened to overhear Linda speaking to him in her usual calm, gentle voice. "Anthony, don't hold others to standards you won't follow yourself. You have a childhood friend who's a girl. So why can't I have one who's a boy? That seems a little hypocritical, don't you think?" Anthony froze. Then his eyes drifted toward me, thoughtful. After Linda left, he strode toward the parking lot. "Anthony. Wait." I called after him, running to catch up. He ignored me completely. I finally reached him and lightly grabbed his sleeve. He shook me off so violently that I nearly lost my balance. "Can you stop following me everywhere?" I stood there in stunned disbelief. His eyes held nothing but annoyance, impatience, and disgust. Yet I couldn't bring myself to question him. I had never been qualified to stand beside Anthony in the first place. He had allowed me to stand there. He also had every right to take that privilege away. I watched his retreating figure until he disappeared from sight. It felt as though a piece of my heart had been ripped away. The next morning, Anthony didn't wait for me before going to school. Instead, I ran into Lisa outside the academic building. She smirked smugly. "Emma, your good days are almost over." The sting of being abandoned the night before still lingered, and I had no desire to deal with her. Unfortunately, Lisa had other plans. She grabbed my clothes and shoved me hard, sending me sprawling onto the ground. I frowned and glared up at her. "What are you doing?" She crouched in front of me, patted my cheek, and smiled. "I'm warning you. Stay away from Anthony. He's the Clark family's future son-in-law." I looked at her seriously. "Will the Clark family share some business with the Forrest family?" She blinked. "What?" I meant exactly what I said. Lisa rolled her eyes. "In your dreams." I stood up. Then, without another word, I slapped her across the face. Seriously. Did she think everyone was Anthony? That she could simply order me around and walk all over me? If your family isn't going to help the Forrest family, what gives you the right to tell me what to do? You're not exactly pretty, but you certainly dream big. Lisa flew into a rage. Clutching her cheek, she lunged at me. I sidestepped, swept her leg, and finished the movement in one fluid motion. She crashed face first onto the ground. Much better. Just beating her up had already relieved most of the frustration I'd carried since the night before. I let out a long breath and headed straight to class. After class ended, I was just about to look for Anthony when he appeared first. The moment I saw him standing outside the classroom, my heart leaped with surprise and delight. I hurriedly packed my books and ran toward him. "Anthony." He didn't answer. Nor did he ruffle my hair the way he always used to. His expression was unusually grim. Is he still angry about last night? But I hadn't done anything wrong. He glanced at me. "Come with me." I followed quietly behind him. Soon we arrived at the School of Fine Arts. More specifically, outside Linda's dance studio. Before we even reached the classroom, I heard someone sobbing. A bad feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. Inside, Linda was gently comforting a tearful Lisa. Anthony led me over. He looked at me and said only one word. "Apologize." I stared at him in disbelief. How could he defend someone without even asking what had happened? It was her fault, I argued. She started it. Anthony ignored my explanation. "Emma. Apologize." No. It was the first time in my life that I had ever defied him. He clearly hadn't expected it. Anger flashed across his face. "If you refuse, then don't ever appear in front of me again." I looked at him, utterly stunned. Whenever someone bullied me before, Anthony had always stood up for me. Now, he had become the one hurting me the most. I shot an angry look toward Linda and Lisa. Linda looked apologetic as she turned to Anthony. Anthony, girls argue sometimes. It doesn't have to be such a serious matter. She paused gently before adding, just, next time, could we avoid hitting someone's face? Girls do care about those things. On the surface, she sounded as though she were speaking for me. In reality, she was criticizing me for injuring Lisa. Sure enough, Anthony's expression hardened even further. Not a trace of compromise remained in his eyes. Only then did I finally understand. He wasn't defending Lisa. He was giving Linda an explanation. Otherwise, his chances with Linda might be ruined. My eyes filled with tears. After several agonizing minutes of silence, I finally forced the words out. I'm sorry. The instant Lisa heard my apology, she stopped crying and looked up. So that's it? You beat me up this badly, and you think one little apology is enough? Only then did I get a clear look at her face. She was bruised and swollen beyond recognition. She looked like she'd been stung by an entire hive of bees. I stared in shock. Did I really hit her that hard? Your face. Smack. Before I could finish speaking, Lisa slapped me across the face with all her strength. Pain exploded across my cheek, burning hot. A rush of fury surged through me. I raised my hand to strike her back, but Anthony caught my wrist before I could. No matter how hard I struggled, I couldn't break free. My eyes burned with rage as I accused him, Anthony, she hit me. Then you're even. I stared blankly at the man who had grown up with me, the same Anthony who had always protected and doted on me. At that moment, he felt like a complete stranger. His brows were drawn together, and his eyes were filled with disapproval. In the end, I wrenched my hand free and ran away in disappointment. Anthony and I fell into a cold war. He no longer waited for me before leaving for school. By the time I stepped outside each morning, all I could see was the exhaust from his car disappearing down the road. At school, he deliberately avoided me as well, as though terrified that I might cling to him again. So I decided to leave him alone and enjoy the peace. When Dad noticed that I had spent several weekends at home, worry began to weigh heavily on him. Eventually, he could no longer hold back. Emma, did something happen between you and young Master Curry? I sat there in silence, too depressed to answer. Dad sighed and spoke earnestly beside me. For the past month, the Forrest family's business has run into one obstacle after another. Clients have backed out of deals we had already finalized for no apparent reason. If this continues, the Forrest family may not even be able to maintain the appearance of prosperity. Perhaps you could sound young Master Curry out and see what he thinks. Looking at Dad's graying hair and the deep lines of worry carved into his face, my heart ached. When he took over the Forrest family, it had already been a complete mess. Yet for the sake of the family's honor, he had no choice but to hold everything together. All these years, the reason I had been willing to trail after Anthony like a loyal lackey was that it hurt me every time I saw Dad bowing and scraping before the powerful, showering them with flattery. If pleasing Anthony could bring peace to our entire family and allow Dad to stand a little straighter, then what did it matter if I had to swallow a few grievances? Anthony would never come looking for me unless I went to him first. I had always been the one to lower my head. When had he ever taken the initiative to find me? The only time he had done so was to accuse me for someone else's sake. On Monday, I returned to school and paced outside Anthony's office. Over the past few weeks, Anthony and Linda had been going on frequent dates. Reports about them were everywhere. I no longer knew what right I had to approach him. Well, isn't this Miss Forrest? The mocking tone told me exactly who it was before I even turned around. Angela. She had been thriving lately. The Curry family had begun favoring the Brown family, causing their business to soar and elevating the entire family to a higher social standing. In the past, anyone who bullied me would be blacklisted by Anthony. He really had changed. What is it? Are you here to see young Master Curry? Angela clicked her tongue. Some people truly have no self-awareness. A clingy little maid actually dreams of climbing the social ladder and becoming a phoenix. What a shame. A prince is destined to be with a princess. Her mouth kept running, each word more irritating than the last. I looked at her coldly. And what are you supposed to be? A pheasant or a crow? Even if I could never become a phoenix, did she really think she could? Even if I wasn't worthy of the prince, what made her believe she was? Who was she trying to disgust? You. My response left Angela speechless with rage. Then, after a moment, she smiled again. At least I can be friends with the future princess. Some people, however, are destined to be nothing more than expendable cannon fodder. Just wait. You'll be driven out of the capital sooner or later. With her arms folded, she sashayed away. Driven out of the capital? Me? Angela was friends with the future mistress of the Curry family? I suddenly remembered what Lisa had said. Angela must have told Linda something. In the end, I never managed to see Anthony. He had gone to Harbor City with Linda. It didn't matter. Mrs. Curry's 50th birthday celebration was coming up, and he would certainly attend. That weekend, prominent figures from the political and business worlds gathered to celebrate Mrs. Curry's 50th birthday. I searched the room but couldn't find either Anthony or Linda. After Mr. and Mrs. Curry finished their speeches, the opening dance began. The bright lights dimmed, and colorful beams swept across the ballroom. A striking couple suddenly appeared in the center of the dance floor. The music began, and they moved together. They were a perfect match, handsome and beautiful, their movements graceful and effortless. When the dance ended, thunderous applause erupted throughout the hall. After bowing to the guests, they left the center of the floor, and the other guests began dancing at their leisure. I followed behind Anthony and Linda, hoping to find an opportunity to ask whether he had been deliberately targeting the Forrest family's business. I followed them upstairs to the attic, only to freeze at the sight before me. Anthony and Linda were locked in a passionate kiss. My eyes widened, and I stood rooted to the spot. The moment I came to my senses, I hid behind a nearby wooden door. The intimate sounds of their lips moving together were painfully clear. I had no idea how long it lasted before they finally drew apart. Anthony brought Linda a glass of red wine. They stood together in the cool breeze, exchanging tender looks. "When is that male childhood friend of yours going to stay away from you?" Anthony asked. Linda leaned against the railing, gently swirling the wine in her glass. "You're awfully unreasonable. You keep a female childhood friend by your side, so why should mine have to stay away?" Anthony kissed her earlobe and murmured something I couldn't hear. All I caught was Linda's reply. "That depends on how well you behave." They lingered together for a long time before finally leaving the attic. I stepped out from behind the door, feeling as though I had fallen into an ice cellar. I had a feeling I truly would no longer be allowed to remain by Anthony's side. But what would happen to the Forrest family's business? When I went back downstairs, I was completely dazed. Lisa, Angela, and Jeremy raised their glasses toward me with provocative smiles. At that moment, all I wanted was to escape. I hurried into the restroom and stood before the mirror, breathing heavily. "Do you know why the Forrest family has become a thorn in the Clark family's side?" I turned around. Angela was leaning against the doorway, smiling at me. She continued, "All I did was tell the Clark family about the childhood engagement between the Curry family and the Forrest family. The Curry family is the Clark family's gateway into the capital's elite circles. As far as Anthony is concerned, the Clark family is determined to have him. If you know what's good for you, you should leave while you still can. The Clark family has connections on both sides of the law. They aren't people you can afford to offend." A childhood engagement? Since when had there been an engagement between the Curry and Forrest families? Was it between Anthony and me? I wanted to demand an explanation, but by the time I looked up, Angela was already gone. I returned to the ballroom and saw Anthony talking to someone. Linda wasn't with him. I hurried toward him, determined to use the opportunity to clear everything up. I had never dreamed of some childhood engagement. All I wanted was peace for the Forrest family. Before I could reach him, Lisa stepped into my path. "Well, if it isn't the little shadow. Where are you going?" "None of your business. Move. You dare raise your voice at me? Do you want me to make you suffer the way I did last time? You framed me on purpose." Lisa wore an expression that begged to be slapped. "That's right. I did it deliberately. What are you going to do about it? You're nothing more than a foil for my cousin. As long as Linda is here, Anthony will always take my side." I sneered. "You make it sound as though you're the one Anthony loves." She was only Linda's cousin, yet she acted as though she had the right to throw her weight around. Anger flashed through Lisa's eyes. She glanced behind me, then advanced until she was standing directly in front of me. My patience snapped. "Move." A vicious light flickered in her eyes. In the span of a second, our positions shifted. She threw herself toward the tower of wineglasses. I reached out too late, and from everyone's perspective, it looked exactly as though I had pushed her. The glasses crashed to the floor in a deafening cascade, drawing the attention of the entire ballroom. "Emma, why do you always have to make things difficult for me?" Lisa sobbed. "What have I ever done to you?" She accused me before everyone, leaving me with no way to explain. "It wasn't me." Anthony walked toward us, frowning at me. I hurried forward and grabbed his sleeve. "Anthony," she fell on her own. "I had nothing to do with it." Linda helped Lisa to her feet while the Curry family's private physician stepped forward to examine her injuries. Linda looked at Anthony with her brows knitted together, seeming as though she wanted to speak but couldn't. I already understood. A moment later, Anthony brushed my hand away. "Emma, can you stay away from me? Stop causing trouble and forcing me to clean up after you." I rushed to explain. "No, I didn't do anything. They're all working together to bully me. They said the Curry family and the Forrest family arranged a childhood engagement, and that's why the Clark family has been targeting me." Anthony looked at me with disappointment. "When they said your intentions toward me weren't innocent, I didn't believe them." But hearing you say this yourself only proves they were right. I whipped around to look at Angela. The delight in her eyes was impossible to miss. Then I looked at Linda and Lisa. They were both watching me make a fool of myself. I had fallen into their trap. Mrs. Curry stepped forward with a warm smile to smooth things over. Emma, I've always thought of you as my own daughter. You and Anthony are closer than real siblings. My parents bowed repeatedly to Mr. and Mrs. Curry. Emma has been thoughtless. We'll discipline her properly when we return home. We're terribly sorry for causing trouble. I didn't care what any of them thought. I only wanted to know Anthony's attitude. But Anthony was already turning to follow Linda. I grabbed the hem of his coat tightly. Anthony. He turned back and looked at me with icy eyes. Emma, can you stop clinging to me for the rest of your life? Stay away from me. I can't stand the sight of you. The murderous coldness in his eyes frightened me so badly that I released his coat at once. I stared at him, frozen in place, tears gathering in my eyes. He gave me one last cold glance before hurrying after Linda. The room buzzed with voices all around me. Yet I alone felt as though I had been sealed inside a block of ice. After Anthony openly declared his disgust for me at the banquet, the Forrest family's business situation deteriorated even further. Dad was overwhelmed, while Mom lived in constant anxiety. I still wanted to make one last attempt to win Anthony over and ask him to help the Forrest family. But I couldn't get anywhere near him. I waited outside his department, crouched by the gate of his home, and tried to make an appointment at Curry Corporation. Nothing worked. I couldn't even catch sight of a single strand of Anthony's hair. Once again, I returned disappointed. Lisa, Angela, and a group of unknown followers blocked my path. I had no desire to fight with them. I tried to go around, but they stopped me again. I looked at Lisa coldly. Move. Lisa crossed her arms and stared at me with a provocative smirk. No. What are you going to do about it? She gave one of her followers a meaningful look, and several of them immediately stepped forward and began shoving and grabbing at me. Get away from me.